relatively new member of the club. We've heard several speeches from him. He's a very talented speaker, very naturally, but perhaps that's because he always speaks with passion about his favorite topic, at least every time I've heard it. It's always about beer. His speech tonight, as a matter of fact, is called The History of Beer. Please welcome Brad McMillan.
Allow me 1 second to get set up here. What's that? When he says that. Trying to join the digital age. Does anybody else like beer in here? Does anybody else love beer? Beer ingrained in part of your soul? It is in mine. It is in mine. A Milwaukee native, it must have come by it honestly. So I want to tell you a little about the history of beer. We're going to split it into 3 parts. Before the Common Era, after the Common Era into the 1900s, and modern beer. So the hunter-gatherers, so around 10,000 BC, they decided to switch to an agricultural lifestyle. So instead of foraging for food, instead of running around covering a large territory, they planted their grains, they cultivated them, and stockpiled them. Now something interesting happened as they stored these grains. As water fell on them, enzymes started working within the grain. These diastatic enzymes, they started breaking down these complex carbohydrates into simple sugars. Now our friend yeast loved these sugars and decided to start breaking these down into CO2, another byproduct, ethanol. Ethanol plus water plus malt, we have beer. So, and not always in the same form. So they first saw this with domesticated animals. As they stored these grains, the cattle would wander around, eat these grains. You ever seen a drunken cow? I'd have to ask a few questions. I'd have to find out a few more things on that. So they did. As they had more time, they were able to specialize in different skills in focusing on their craft. So such came the Guild of Brewers. So around 7,000 BC is where we first see beer coming into play. We have evidence of it in pottery shards. Most of our information comes from around 6,500 from Mesopotamia in the area of the Fertile Crescent. So it was made at the beginning as a rudimentary porridge. So if you think of oatmeal, now think back to oats, where it's not broken down. Let's throw this in some hot water. Let's start to break this down. Now we have this mess. Let's leave it out in the sun. Let's let it get warm. Now yeast falls upon it. That's one of the first beer that was made. It was later done intentionally. Once we got down a little farther, we turned into a dark age of beer. About 510 to 475, the Greeks and Romans, they absolutely hated beer. Wine was their culture. That's what they were brought up on. Beer was looked down upon greatly. Grain didn't grow well everywhere. The grapes grew better where they were from, and there was very little progress in brewing throughout that time. In 510 AD, the monks started brewing beer. The monks had levels of fasting where they could not eat, but they could drink beer. The carbohydrates provided sustenance. There was amounts of protein in there, and they were able to be converted to fat, so they were able to sustain themselves. They passed these on to travelers, and just continues today. In the medieval times, around the time of the Black Plague, their sanitation conditions were horrible. Anything you touched could possibly kill you. Water was one of those items. So in the process of making beer, the water is boiled, therefore sanitized. So a lot of the people that survived the Black Plague was due parts of beer. In In 1514, probably one of the most pivotal points of beer and civilization, King William of Bavaria instituted the Reinheitsgebot, or the German purity laws. This was an economic decision where the brewers were using too much yeast, too much rye, and the bakers couldn't provide enough food. So he said that only water, barley, and hops were able to be the constituents of beer. This changed history. Instead of adding gruit, which was added up until this time, this was bitter hop, this was bitter leaves, twigs, mushrooms, berries. Not all these things were very safe. So this helped to standardize and was actually the first food safety law. So we speed it up a little bit. 1720 Industrial Revolution changed the face of brewing. Less people needed to do it, so that same amount of people could brew a lot more beer. In 1842, in the town of Pilsen in the Czech Republic, the first golden lager would be formed. This was the Budweiser Burgerbrau Brewery. Late in 1785, Anheuser-Busch started taking over this name in 1876. The legal battle ensued and is still working itself out. In 1876, Louis Pasteur discovered yeast. Before that, they didn't know what was going on. This was one of the pioneer moments in measurements in exact production. This marks the beginning of the 20th century. Prohibition was a large factor in the beer movement. We had a large number of craft breweries beforehand, about 1,200. After 1980, after Prohibition, 703. In 1980, only 89 left. Today, there are over 2,500 craft breweries. We haven't seen that number since 1887. Despite all that time, craft breweries only had 6.5% of the market share. The rest is by two other companies, which I won't name. But what you have to understand and what you have to look at is that American beer in your glass. Whether in Stone Age villages, Mesopotamian beer halls, or modern pubs, beer has brought together people since the dawn of civilization. The future of beer in America is decided by the drinkers and the brewers, people that sit before us today. So cheers, prost,